Hi, I'm Jess Minton, and I'm a project and program manager at DAS42. I have been helping clients for many years see and understand and take action with their data. Today, I will be discussing the power of AI to accelerate data foundations with Bruce Oliver.
Hi, I'm Bruce Oliver. I've been at DAS42 for 6 years. I'm a principal, and my primary responsibility is to design and lead project implementations.
So, Bruce, everyone's talking about using AI in their business. Your focus on something upstream of AI, actually, accelerating how we build our data foundations. From your point of view, why do you think that's so important?
So I think it's important to accelerate data foundations because when you zoom out, we talk a lot about the data maturity curve and this concept that certain companies are really, really mature in their data journey, and other companies are really just getting started, maybe onboarding a modern data cloud platform like Snowflake. And regardless of where companies are on that maturity curve, they're thinking about AI somehow, some way. And certainly their data team is being asked to implement AI in a meaningful and valuable way for the business. And what we see with those really mature companies is that they're ready to take that step. But we also work with a number of companies that are, like I said, just getting started in their journey, and they need some level of foundational data before they can really take the plunge into AI. And what we're also seeing is that truly impactful AI implementations simply don't happen without a solid data foundation, but it can be really tempting to skip that step because historically setting that foundation can be cost and time prohibitive. It takes way too long and it's too expensive. So a big piece of what DAS42 has been doing lately is thinking about how we could accelerate that foundational data build out. And we're doing this in a bunch of different ways, but I think that the big pieces are tech stack selection, making sure that things are simple because then we can go faster. So working with tools like Snowflake, Fivetran, and dbt. But we're also building a lot of internal project accelerators that we're excited about. Things like Foundation 42, which helps set up a Snowflake environment really, really quickly. And little toolkits that speed up common tasks that our engineers are doing day in and day out, whether that's SQL conversion into a clean style guide, doing variant unpack, transform generation, things that we do every single day, figuring out ways to automate that so that we can build out a foundational layer much faster. And that work enables our clients to do that critical foundation work in a way that is not time or cost prohibitive.
Those are magic words, not cost prohibitive, especially when you're getting started on something that can be a many years long roadmap. In your view, what's the relationship between good data foundations and successful AI implementations? For a business that is hearing, build it in AI, do it in AI, why can't you skip straight to the AI part?
Yeah, this one feels obvious lately. I think that this is a talk track that's finally kind of resonating with the broader market. But the simple truth is that there is no AI strategy without first having a really good data strategy. Um, you know, Data engineers think a lot about dependency trees, and good data is an upstream dependency of building a meaningful AI workload, especially one that actually gets to production and then actually gets used. We hear so much about, 90 some odd percent of AI projects failing. And I think a big reason for that is that the upstream work wasn't done beforehand to either validate that the data is there for the use case or then do the work to put the data in the right place to accomplish that use case. So garbage in, garbage out has never been more true or more real. And good data foundations is simply critical for successful AI implementations.
Walk me through what intelligent ITSM means. How is that different from traditional IT service management approaches?
Yeah, so when we talk about how traditional IT service management approaches differ from what we're calling intelligent ITSM, I think it's helpful to first just break down what do we mean by traditional? What does that really look like? And so in traditional ITSM, this looks something like a device breaks. A human being notices that it breaks. They literally are trying to do something and they can't. Said human being reports that issue. That report falls into some review queue of unknown variable length for another human being to analyze and triage. They work the incident to completion, get the device back online, tell the customer or whoever is the downstream user, hey, this is working again. And that individual gets back on with their life or whatever they were trying to do with said device. Intelligent ITSM looks very different, right? It looks something like this. The device breaks. That device sends an event payload to an AIOps tool that is listening all the time. The AIOps tool parses that down event and it quickly searches for other similar events that it's received in maybe a similar amount of time in a similar location, looking for correlation and potentially compressing those events into one actionable incident. If possible, that AIOps tool will also attempt to auto remediate the issue. A lot of times, it's funny enough, like usually the first thing that teams do is turn it off, and then back on again. If possible, AIOps will do the same thing. It'll power cycle an outlet, make sure that the device goes on and back on and sees if it works. If it can't auto remediate, then at that point, it will automatically generate an incident in the system that human beings are looking at and working to triage. And it will keep tabs on that device, right? It'll keep asking to see if it's up. And if it is, it will auto resolve the incident for the users. And hopefully it's very obvious like how the customer experience might be different between traditional ITSM and intelligent ITSM when you break it down that way.
It's interesting to hear the definition of the word traditional in the IT and data space continue to evolve. Have you worked with any clients on problems like this where you've been able to implement intelligent ITSM?
Yeah, so DAS42 works with one of the largest fiber providers in the world, Zayo, on exactly this problem. We work with their managed services department in particular to accomplish what we're calling intelligent ITSM. And so kind of in partnership, Zayo and DAS42 have built a modern data stack that features an AIOps tool, Snowflake, and ServiceNow. And this system comprehensively is able to attribute that a device webhook that made some noise and sent data to that AIOps tool. We're able to understand exactly which customer it relates to and at what location. The AIOps tool then uses that information to determine, did another device at that site also go down in the last 15, 30 minutes? Because if so, probably a related incident that I don't want to track separately. So we're able to compress multiple disparate events into a single actionable incident. That incident is then auto-generated in another system that a team is actually monitoring and working to resolve said incidents. The AIOps tool continues to check in and determine if auto resolution is necessary, if the device came back up online and we don't have to work that incident anymore. And of course, we have end-to-end visibility across that entire process. You could see how a number of different places and all these different data workflows could break. So keeping the lights on, making sure that we understand that the enrichment maps are still publishing, that the data syncs are still accurate, that we're properly attributing the right devices to the right locations and the right customers is an ongoing operational model that allows the NOC at Zayo to have full confidence in what they're doing and that they can enrich and compress and alert accordingly and quickly for their customers.
I think you said something really important there about that they have visibility into all of these processes, and that's where the people still are managing and touching problems when they occur. But it's perhaps taking them a lot less time to actually resolve things when it's done in this manner, which is pretty cool. For a process like that, why was Snowflake the tool of choice?
Yeah, great question. I think the interoperability that Snowflake offers is critical here. When you think about data in a telco ITSM space, a constant problem, specifically and especially in that industry, is that there are a bajillion different data sources, right? And the need for a single source of truth is kind of omnipresent. And when you do accomplish, and Snowflake is a great tool for that single source of truth. And so when you can accomplish something like that, putting all the related data sources in one place, you now have this really powerful hub to power operational processes like intelligent ITSM or automated service delivery. The list kind of goes on and on and on once you've built this internal hub of like, I understand that this source system is related to this device in ServiceNow and this customer in some other platform. And if you can tie everything together in the warehouse, you could do really powerful reverse ETL processes to accomplish some really cool business automation.
Bruce, you mentioned that we're working on some accelerators that can really help to speed up the implementation of some of our projects. Maybe taking things that used to take months so that they only take weeks or sometimes even days. What has changed, and what is AI actually doing that's making those time savings possible?
Yeah, I think the primary ways that we've accelerated our project delivery and gone from being able to do things that used to take us weeks to days and hours, I think first and foremost is embracing AI coding agents. For a long time, I was a practitioner myself. I was looking at this and be like, no way, like humans can't be replaced by machines. Like these things can't do what I do. And especially in 2026, the fact of the matter is that AI coding agents are very, very, very powerful. And if you're not using them, you're simply falling behind. And DAS42 has really embraced that concept. I like to think of it like I have 5 senior developers in my pocket, but they don't have a whole lot of critical thinking skills. And so there's always going to be a need for human beings. I truly believe that. But we've embraced this idea of agentic coding patterns, and that has facilitated a massive acceleration in our work of just day-to-day tasks. But beyond that, we're taking the next step and thinking about ways that we could build novel DAS42 specific solutions that can accelerate our project team. So we know that we're really, really good at Snowflake implementations, and we know that we found little niches and things that we do differently along the way. And what we're doing now is building a centralized repository and a centralized tool for our consultants to use day in and day out to accomplish these common tasks. These are things like setting up a foundational database schema, warehouse, role structure in Snowflake. Things like converting our SQL to a common style guide that we publish and that is trained on a RAG. Or a very common task in our line of work is bringing in data in semi-structured format to a bronze layer, and it looks nasty and in this gross format. And what you used to do is literally like manually type out the variant unpack SQL for that. Then it became, well, can I throw this at an LLM and have it do it for me? Now what we have is our own custom tool that does it exactly the way that we want it to do. So it's a cut and paste, and then we grab it, we're on to the next task. So in summary, it's a combination of embracing AI agents and building out some really valuable internal accelerators so that our project teams can go faster than they ever have before.
I also love the idea that everyone at DOS has access to this. So no matter who you work with from DOS42, you will have access to the entire brain trust of the organization through our internal assets.
Right. I think that's a problem that a lot of companies are figuring out how to solve. Is you do run into this situation where you've got a really talented team and everybody builds really valuable stuff, but they only know about it. It's hard to kind of democratize access, even within your own organization, to valuable tools. So what we're really looking to do with this tool is exactly what you said: make it easy for everyone to, one, use all the time, but two, contribute to. And Snowflake's native app framework has actually been a really interesting way to explore that. This concept that from a single provider account, I can publish something novel and cool, and have kind of this one single code base for it, but I can quickly distribute it to n number of Snowflake accounts where DOS42 teams might be deployed, and then they can use that collateral to speed them up.
You mentioned that we are embracing coding agents. Tell me about a project where Claude Code compressed 2 weeks of work into a few days. What were you building, and what did Claude Code do that differed from the old approach?
So I think, a lot of this depends on your personal technical background, right? I think as I've come up and learned and grown skills, it's been primarily in like the back end world. I understand APIs. I understand how to write pretty solid Python and SQL code, but the concept of building a usable front end has always kind of escaped me. I've never fully understood JavaScript. I've never sat down and figured out how to type it out myself and build something that's really, really beautiful. And that's where I've noticed a massive accelerator with AI coding agents is I can say, hey, I want it to look like this. I can build the backend. I'll make the backend do what I want. But when I press this button, this is what I want to have happen. Just make it look really good. And that's what I've seen a huge accelerator in, is just like augmenting skills that I personally have gaps in. I don't understand a whole lot about front end development, but this thing can generate beautiful UI and UX experiences for me as long as I'm there to guide it. So most notably, we were building out, a custom MDM solution for one of our current clients, and they wanted to be able to cleanly work through what is inarguably a very complex workflow. When you talk about MDM, there's a whole bunch of different things going on. You got probabilistic matches, you got deterministic matches, things get complicated really quickly. And if we were able to build a user experience that was really just click, 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 as opposed to understanding the nitty gritty details of the back end, that would be really powerful. And so I was able to take advantage of coding agents for sure to I knew what I wanted it to do. I just didn't know how to get it there. And prompting away and kind of getting to the point where I had a UX that was workable and kind of obfuscated this complicated backend. That's the example that comes to mind for me right now.
It's pretty amazing if you have the ideas and the agents can help you put it together.
Right. There's this cool concept, and I think, again, like DAS42 is really embracing this. It's with the rise of AI agents and how good they've gotten, kind of everybody's gotten promoted to be a manager or a solution architect. You very much are still responsible for what you put out, right? There's the AI slop, very real. But if you have someone who takes a lot of ownership in what they're building and tests rigorously, you can accomplish things that you honestly you couldn't before, and that's cool. And I think it's one of those great power comes great responsibility moments. But DAS42 is embracing it, and we're having a lot of success.
It sounds like in addition to not skipping our data foundations, we also will never ever skip testing.
Never skip testing. Yeah, QA important.
QA is still critically important. When you tell a client that we can do something in days instead of weeks because of AI, how do they usually react? Are you finding that clients trust this type of approach?
I think human nature is to push back on things that are scary and different, right? Like a lot of times it's like, I don't know, that's not possible. You can't finish that in 2 weeks. So you do get a bit of a resistance. Not to the point where it's like, don't do that. It's just like a healthy dose of pessimism. And what we're seeing is, consulting adage, like you never want to overpromise and underdeliver. And so like AI kind of sets you up to do that, where you're like, well, this is probably going to take us X amount of time. The client's accustomed to hearing a time that's much larger than that. So yeah, to simply put, I have heard clients say there's no way that we're going to get that done in that amount of time, but then we accomplish it. And you kind of, at that point, it's like a proving point. It's like, it's an art of the possible moment. And I think that can really wake up the team, the client to be like, what are they doing differently to deliver at this rate? And that's where we can, embed a further level of our services. Like this show us, this is exactly how we're doing development at DAS42. Client might be interested in doing the same for their internal teams. So yeah, in conclusion, usually pessimistic, eventually, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing different?
And we said, of course, quality assurance is still very important. We should never skip testing. Faster is great. How do we ensure that our quality stays high when we're moving at AI speed? Like what rigorous guideposts would you have in place?
I think this comes back to kind of a founding idea that DAS42 has always had about AI, which is that the human in the loop is critical and not going away. It's important to embrace the concept that machines are building this code and embrace the concept that machines are building this code and it needs to be rigorously tested. I think it's funny because you can accomplish so much more in a short amount of time than you used to be able to. And so what that has kind of weirdly unlocked is a bunch more time for testing. Historically, we would build our SOWs in a way where you may be through 2 to 4 weeks of QA and UAT at the end of a project. And it always felt like a squeeze. It always does, right? And so now it's much more testing as you go. And spending a bulk of your time prompting and a bulk of your time testing. And then the next feature starts after that, which brings to mind another just kind of lesson from the trenches that I think we're finding is that it's really easy to ask an AI agent to kind of do everything all at once. But what we're really training our team to do is like go feature by feature and test to completion something before you ask it to move on to the next step. So I think there's lots of things in between the weeds that we're doing, but at the end of the day, it's that rigorous QA and testing quality. And we've always a tangent to this, but I think it's important as DAS42 has always subscribed to this like full stack model. We don't, for example, have one consultant do the work and then another consultant test it. That's never been our model. It's if you did the work, you're going to test said work. And I think that's played really well into what it looks like to be like an AI engineer or an AI assisted engineer. Is you're on the hook for testing this and you're on the hook when you create the PR. So yeah, I think that those are the different ways that we're applying testing to to our AI workflows.
Okay, let's change gears a little bit and talk about master data management. Again, with this concept of traditional master data management platforms tend to be expensive, and we will generously call them complex instead of complicated. It sounds like there's an opportunity for companies to use Snowflake in place of some of these more traditional tools with our help. How does that work?
At its core, replacing a off-the-shelf MDM with Snowflake looks like a containerized service that is performing a matching algorithm and then smushing gold records together at the end of the day. I want to back up and just talk about the theory for a moment, because I think that leads nicely into the implementation. And the theory is that if you're using Snowflake as your central source of truth and your repository for all data, it becomes a really logical place to execute a workload like master data management, where you're effectively saying that entity X in this system and entity Y in this system are really the same thing. And I want to create a gold version of those entities somewhere for use in downstream analytics or AI or whatever the use case might be. So, from an architecture perspective, if you can get Snowflake to accomplish an MDM workflow, it makes a ton of sense. The next question is, well, how do you get Snowflake to accomplish an MDM workload? And that's where I think DAS42 is doing some really innovative thinking using Snowpark Container Services and native apps. We've built what we're calling MDM42, which is, like I mentioned, a containerized service that can also deploy it as a native app that guides a user all the way from disparate data set to gold record detection. And it materializes, well, I should say it inputs Snowflake data and it outputs Snowflake tables. So this really clean workflow where you talk about bringing the code to your data as opposed to the other way around. And kind of along the way, we're accomplishing and we're doing some very innovative things with sentence transformers, cross matches, and FIS index searching. And what I would summarize it as is fuzzy matching on steroids, just like a rocket-powered fuzzy matcher, with the ability to add deterministic rules, elegant survivorship rules, everything that MDM has, but it all kind of lives right in the Snowflake data cloud.
You mentioned that this is a great solution if you've got Snowflake as your centralized source of truth. And certainly that's true for many of our clients. Are there times when an organization should still consider investing in a separate MDM platform?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I really like about working at DAS42 is that we don't force solutions that don't make sense for our clients for the sake of a bigger SOW price tag or anything like that. And so the fact of the matter is that there is a time and a place for an off-the-shelf MDM. If there are data workloads that need to be mastered that are never going to go into Snowflake, at that point, the Snowflake-Native MDM solution is off the table. So yeah, there's a time and a place. If you're an organization that has fully embraced Snowflake as the primary data repository, single source of truth, I think it makes a ton of sense. If you're going to live in a world where you will never have all the data entities that you want to master into a golden record, because those are not all going to be in Snowflake ever, then you need to think about a different solution.
It sounds like you've taken this MDM approach with clients before. So I'd love to hear more about a client scenario. Let's say you've got a customer with data all over the place, which we know is very, very common. What's the Snowflake-Native approach to fixing that?
Yeah. So we to dive deeper on a real life client example of using our native MDM solution in Snowflake, we've been working with a leading nonprofit operating across North America, and they have, like any business, a number of disparate systems and a need to track individuals across all of those systems. So, and to complicate things further, it's very possible for example, John Smith to show up in the same system multiple times as different roles, as different distinct records. So it's really this cross and inter data source mapping that needs to be accomplished. And the goal is to basically condense 17 John Smiths into a single John Smith with the most accurate attribution that we care about for that person, whether it's email, phone number, address, things of that nature. And so this nonprofit had made the decision to modernize their entire data platform, focus it around Snowflake. And so it was a natural fit. If we're going to bring everything into Snowflake, why don't we use Snowflake as the engine for MDM as well? So DAS42 deployed our containerized service for MDM into this nonprofit's Snowflake account. And they now work through a very simple workflow where they essentially tell the MDM solution, hey, what data sets do I want to master? I've got this table, this table, this table, this table, this table, this table. It all has people records in it. Let me just throw them at this MDM. And then the MDM works through some state-of-the-art probabilistic matching techniques, starting with embedding the entire data set and then creating what's called a weighted embedding, which can be valuable because we might want to provide higher weights for different attributes. We might want to say that, well, it's more important that their emails match than their street addresses match, for example. So we can do that weighting in real time. Then we use an open source technology called FIS, which Facebook open sourced, that allows for really, really fast index matching to find the top n nearest neighbors from a similarity perspective for every record in the data set, like a true all-to-all comparison. Then we do a cross match, which is a fancy way for just saying like semantic matching, like is record A the same as record B for those condensed top n individuals or top n records. And then we cluster everything together using like a graph-based data structure, which allows us to say that, well, if record A matched to record B and record B matched to record C, well, that actually means the record A should also match to record C. So there's sort of this transitive match that we accomplish. And then the final part is just telling it like, hey, where do you want this to live? We're already in Snowflake. What database and schema do you want to spit this out in? And on top of that, you can schedule it using Snowflake-Native tasks. So what you have there is this ability to run this really complicated but elegant and valuable matching algorithm on the same computers that are holding your data. So it's super, super secure. It's not all that expensive because it's actually running on compute pools, which are comparable in price to warehouses actually. And the mental complexity is low in a way because I'm not moving my data out of Snowflake and pushing it back in as a gold version. Everything stays in Snowflake and just kind of works through the transformation layer, if you will. And we've seen a lot of success with that because now we have this gold record, this gold person entity that we've generated right in Snowflake, and we can seamlessly plug that in to our gold layer for reporting as well.
You mentioned that this data modernization journey that the client is undergoing, they've chosen Snowflake as their platform, but that means Snowflake is new. What makes this approach maybe better than something else for a team that is adopting Snowflake for the first time?
Yeah, I think when you talk about onboarding a complex workload, a complex custom workload like MDM to Snowflake, the key is in the user experience. And that's where containerized services really come into play because you can use whatever framework you're comfortable in building to make a really flexible and really elegant UI so that a user can step through with button clicks and drop downs and a guided approach to a really complex backend. And you can really simplify the workflow. It's similar to a drag and drop ETL tool in some ways. So the combination of Snowflake having all the bells and whistles to accomplish said mapping exercise with the ability to also layer in a custom UI that gives users a clean and simple way to interact with a complex backend, I think is the real power there.
Bruce, if you are talking to a company that wants to move faster with their data projects, what's the first thing that they should do differently?
If I'm talking to a company that wants to move faster with their data projects, selfishly, the first thing I'm saying is bring on DAS42. We'll help you get there. But in all honesty, I think it's first looking at, are you using an AI agent-based coding workflow? Is there opportunity for you to onboard AI agents for your current full-time employees to move faster? DAS42 has done that, and we're seeing kind of this insane explosion in productivity, and really have come to the conclusion that if you're not jumping on this, you're falling behind from an AI agent perspective. And the next thing I would look to is, can you consolidate and look for places to take advantage of the novel things that your team has already built and put them in a single repository for the entire team to work on? those are things that we've done at DAS42 that we're having success with. And so I would encourage any real world business that I was talking to look to implement similar things.
Now, Bruce, it's time for your hot seat question. You have 30 seconds. If a company knows they want to use AI in their business, how does that affect their approach to data modernization?
If a company knows that they want to use AI in their business, I think that affects their approach to data modernization in a few ways. The first is tech stack selection. We believe that Snowflake is the best in breed for onboarding AI workloads because they've simply made it easier than the rest of the field is what we would argue. And the next big call out I would make is you have to focus on the foundations first. You have to have a data strategy before you get into a true AI strategy. If you don't, you should expect your AI POCs to fail like 90% of the AI projects that we hear about in the market. If you want to learn more about how DAS42 can help you on your data foundations journey and or onboarding real production ready AI workloads, reach out at DAS42.com/connect.